Brian and Sarah had always wanted a corgi, and when they stumbled upon a litter of puppies at the local shelter, they knew they had to have one. They named their new furry friend Yuki, and she quickly became a beloved member of their family. But there was something off about Yuki. She would often stare at them with a strange intensity, and her growls and barks were unusually harsh. Brian and Sarah brushed it off as just part of her personality, but as time went on, they couldn't ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. One day, as they were playing with Yuki in the backyard, she suddenly stopped and started barking at something that only she could see. Brian and Sarah watched in confusion as Yuki's eyes turned an eerie shade of red, and she lunged at them, teeth bared. They managed to escape, but Yuki's sudden attack left them shaken. They took her to the vet, hoping to find an explanation for her strange behavior, but the tests came back inconclusive. As the weeks passed, Yuki's behavior only grew more erratic. She would bark at nothing in particular, and her eyes would often turn red. They began to fear for their safety, but they didn't know what to do. One day, while Brian and Sarah were out running errands, they received a call from their neighbor. Yuki had attacked her dog and it was badly injured. They rushed home, terrified of what they might find. As they walked into their backyard, they saw Yuki sitting in the middle of the lawn, surrounded by a circle of strange symbols. She was no longer just a dog, there was something evil inside her. Brian and Sarah didn't know what to do, so they turned to the internet for answers. They stumbled upon a website that claimed to have the solution to their problem. It was a ritual that would banish the evil spirit possessing Yuki. They gathered the necessary items and set to work. As they chanted the incantation, they watched in horror as Yuki's eyes turned a deeper shade of red. But they didn't stop her, they had to save their beloved pet. Suddenly, there was a bright flash of light, and when it dissipated, Yuki was gone. Brian and Sarah were relieved that they thought the ritual had worked. But as they looked around, they realized that something was different. Their world had changed her, everything was distorted and twisted. The sky was a sickly green color, and the trees were black and withered. They had entered a world beyond their own, and they didn't know how to get back. They wandered through this strange land, searching for a way out. They encountered other creatures, twisted versions of animals they knew, but none of them could help. As they walked, they heard the sound of barking in the distance. They followed the noise, and to their horror, they saw Yuki standing in front of them. But she was no longer a corgi, or she had grown in size, and was now a monster. They tried to run, but Yuki was too fast. She chased after them, her growls echoing through the twisted landscape. Brian and Sarah knew they had to find a way to defeat her before it was too late. They stumbled upon a group of people who claimed to know how to defeat Yuki. They were a secret society of demon hunters who had been tracking her for years. They told Brian and Sarah that Yuki was possessed by a powerful demon and that they had to perform a ritual to banish it back to hell. They agreed to help and joined the society on their mission. They gathered the necessary items and performed the ritual, calling upon the forces of good to banish the demon from Yuki's body. As they chanted, they saw Yuki's eyes turn from red to white, and she collapsed on the ground. When the ritual was over, Yuki was back to her normal self, a small and harmless corgi. Brian and Sarah were overjoyed to have their beloved pet back, but they knew that they couldn't stay in this strange world any longer. The demon hunters showed them the way back to their own world, and they left, grateful for their help. As they stepped back into their own backyard, everything was back to normal. The grass was green, the sky was blue, and the trees were lush and healthy. But Brian and Sarah knew that they had been changed by their experience. They had faced something beyond their understanding, and they had come out the other side stronger for it. They'd also learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of possession and the power of evil. They vowed to always be vigilant and to never let their guard down again. And as for Yuki, she had no memory of what had happened. She was just happy to be back with her family, wagging her tail and licking their faces. They knew that they had been through a lot, but they were glad to have each other. From that day forward, Brian and Sarah never forgot the strange and terrifying journey they had been on. They told their story to anyone who would listen, hoping to warn others of the dangers of possession and the need for vigilance in the face of evil. As for Yuki, she remained the same lovable corgi that they had always known, always ready to greet them with a wagging tail and a slobbery kiss. But they never forgot that she had once been possessed by a demon, and they knew that they would always be on the lookout for signs of trouble. And as they looked out over their backyard, they couldn't help but wonder what other strange and terrifying adventures awaited them in the future. But one thing was certain, they would face them together, as a family, ready to take on whatever came their way. You have just traveled to the darker limits. Join us again as we explore the strange, unexplainable, and frightening.